Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Today you join me in my absolute bargain Subaru Legacy that I bought for £1,050 plus fees from auction. It's a 2011 2-litre diesel with 104,000 miles on the clock. Now this car has previously been a category N write-off, N meaning non-structural, so more than likely a body panel or something. It's had a bumper or something. It's not actually damaged the structure of the car. But of course, it's always going to have that marker against it, which brings the value down, which is probably why I bought it for so cheap. That, and the fact that it did have an engine management light on, which I was aware of, but I thought, you know, how bad could it be? It turns out the DPF was blocked, but the mechanics at the garage managed to put an off-car DPF cleaner through it. So you take the exhaust off the car, the DPF section, fill it up with fluid, block off one end of it, leave it soaking overnight, and then you empty it out, clean it all out, and job's a good one. It probably means this car was used for someone just pootling to and from the shops and doing the school run and stuff like that, and they weren't really getting it up to temperature and doing longer journeys, which diesels with a DPF filter do need, really. They need to do a regeneration cycle. They regenerate on their own as you're driving them, which normally takes, you know, 5 to 10 miles or something over a certain speed and temperature is what they say. I don't think I've ever bought an older Subaru Legacy, Forester, Impreza that isn't knocking on suspension bushes. So we had a couple of those to do, but it's not the end of the world. And other than that, she's a beauty. It even came with a full tank of fuel, probably because they filled it up and ran into DPF issues, and then thought, you know what, I'm just going to trade this in. The 2-litre diesel engine in this is quite noisy. It is very agricultural, and I don't know how well you can hear it, but you know, it's not the smoothest thing in the world. I don't know whether that's just how these are generally, or this one has something else up with it, but the mechanics were fairly happy that there was nothing drastically wrong going on with it. But agricultural engine aside, I don't think for £1,000 you are going to get a better daily runabout than this. It's 2-litre diesel, it's economic, it's all-wheel drive, so adverse conditions, snow, rain, all that sort of stuff, it's still going to get you to where you want to go. It's got cruise control, dual zone climate control, heated seats, it's got a sunroof, it's even got a 6 CD changer. Honestly, I mean, for that sort of money, what else do you want? This is a hell of a car. The bodywork looks really good on the outside. Should you be concerned about buying a category write-off car? Well, that's entirely up to you. I think it's a way to get a really good value for money car, as long as you're confident that it's being repaired to a good standard. Something that's category N usually is going to come down to the bodywork. Does the bodywork look good? We have occasionally had people come into the garage and they try and sell us a car, and from a distance, it's what my garage manager Dan calls a 10-foot car, because from 10 foot away it looks great, and you get up close and you realise that Dave and his mate Gareth have probably sprayed it in their garage with a rattle can, and it just looks horrendous. I mean, category N, I guess that's more the sort of thing you need to worry about. You're not going to be worrying too much about suspension, that sort of damage. Category S probably means it's had some suspension components changed. Perhaps the airbags have gone off and they've been changed to check the interiors, things like that. On the whole, they tend to be okay. You know, they've got to go through an MOT afterwards. I have seen and bought some awful ones in my past, but the majority of them are usually okay. Just use your noodle, do a HPI check. Some of them now will give you pictures from the salvage auctions, depending on when it went through, because normally what will happen is you'll crash your car, the insurance will get involved, they'll write it off and say, yeah, it's just not worth spending the money to repair it, we're just going to give you a payout and you can buy a new car. At which stage they then send it to an auction, something like Copart, or there are a few other ones, and they will sell it off to someone who thinks it's worthwhile fixing it up, and they can maybe make a profit out of it or get the car that they want. So occasionally with one of these apps, Motor Check, Car Vertical, not that I've ever used them, but you see them on everyone's YouTube video, you know, you quite often be able to find the pictures from the auction, and then you'll know exactly what the damage was and where you should be looking. So for the sake of what might cost you 10, 20 quid, well worth checking. The other thing worth mentioning when you are doing a HPI check is you might also find out that it's being written off multiple times. It's not just the one time. You know, some cars I've seen that have been a category N, a category S, and a category D. Category D being the old style for a category N, basically the lesser type of write-off. Just means that it's had more than one accident, really, and been written off by an insurance company more than one time, because once you've had a car repaired, it doesn't affect the insurance. You can still get it insured. That sort of stuff isn't affected, so it can go on being repaired and reinsured for the rest of its life until one of the insurance companies categories as a category B, which is salvage only and cannot go back on the road. What I find really funny with category cars and people being concerned that, you know, the car may be awful and it's dangerous and things won't be safe about it. Obviously it goes through an MOT, so it's been checked on that front. You know, it passes all the safety checks, at least for an MOT. But just because a car's been written off doesn't mean that it's actually had any more repair work than something that hasn't been written off. I know of people who have had very expensive cars, you know, BMW performance cars, brand new, and they've made that car look like it's a pretzel. They've wrapped it around a lamppost. But because it was so new and so valuable, the insurance company has decided that they will repair it, which means it goes to a BMW approved garage and they completely like reshell this thing almost, do whole new body panels, new structural parts, completely repaint it, new wheels, new brakes, new suspension, everything's been bolted onto the damaged part and it's all been made to look brand new. And that car won't have a marker against it at all. You could go and buy that car, which looks like it's been through a meat grinder and then repaired, and there's no marker to make you aware whatsoever, just because the insurance company has decided that's worth fixing, so we'll fix it, and therefore it hasn't been written off. So it does work both ways. Just because a car hasn't got a category HPI marker against it doesn't mean it hasn't been involved in an accident and hasn't been repaired. Either an insurance company has repaired it and therefore they haven't written it off, or someone's had a bit of a bump somewhere or crashed into something and they don't want to use their insurance and therefore they pay to have it repaired themselves. So, you know, don't rely on the fact that a car hasn't been written off, the fact that it hasn't had an accident whatsoever, because that just isn't going to be the case. Anyway, that was my ramblings about insurance write-off cars and this Subaru Legacy, which I'm pretty chuffed with buying, to be honest. It's always a risk buying from auction, even when they're not marked down as being an insurance write-off. But this one looked okay to me, even though it had the engine management light on. I was fairly confident that the guys in the garage would be able to sort it, which they have. And now I've got a car that owes me, let's say, £1,300, and I could run for a year if I wanted. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. If you have, please do comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.